Welcome back, everybody, to another episode about the infamous Yellow Fleet. So let's get right into it. Before we start, I do not want you to be confused with Yellow Sea fleets, such as China's Beiyang Fleet and North Sea Fleet or North Korea's West Sea Fleet. From 1967 to 1975, 15 ships and their crews were trapped in the Suez Canal after the Six-Day War between Israel and Egypt. The stranded ships, which belonged to 8 countries: West Germany, Sweden, France, the United Kingdom, the United States, Poland, Bulgaria, and Czechoslovakia, were nicknamed the Yellow Fleet after the desert sand that coated them. During the war, Egypt blocked both ends of the canal to prevent its use by Israel. Scuttled ships, sea mines, and other debris continued to block transport through the canal until the wake of the Yom Kippur War, after which the blockade was lifted. In 1975, the canal was reopened, enabling the ships to leave after 8 years of being stranded. At that time, only 2 ships were capable of moving under their own power. In June 1967, the 15 ships were sailing northward through the Suez Canal as a war broke out between Israel and Egypt in what was to become known as the Six-Day War. Both ends of the canal were closed, and after 3 days, it became apparent that the canal would remain blocked for some time as a result of the scuttling of ships to block passage. 14 ships were forced to anchor in the widest part of the Suez Canal, the Great Bitter Lake. Some of the scuttled ships cut off the SS Observer from the other ships, and it had to anchor in Lake Timseh. Ships, dredgers, other floating craft, and even a bridge were sunk to block the canal. In addition to the vessels that were sunk, there were a number of sea mines that prevented navigation. With the war having left the Israelis in possession of the entire east bank of the canal, the Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser quickly resolved to keep the canal closed to all shipping indefinitely. The only alternative would have been to allow the Israelis to use it, which was anathema to the Egyptian government. Even if the political issues surrounding the canal could have somehow been resolved, its maintenance would have been economically non-viable, since very few, if any, shippers would have been willing to send their vessels and crews through what was effectively a no-man's land in an active combat zone. Throughout the 8 years, the Israeli and Egyptian armies faced off against each other on either side of the Suez Canal. Sometimes raiding parties from both sides would slip across the canal to gather intelligence. One of the big concerns was that the canal would become silted up without regular dredging. It turned out to be a non-issue. 90% of the canal's silt had been a result of currents caused by the turning of ships' propellers, which was virtually non-existent during this period. In October 1967, the officers and crews of all 14 ships met on the Melampus to found the Great Bitter Lake Association, which provided mutual support. Crew members continued to regularly meet on board their ships, organized social events, founded a yachting club, and held the Bitter Lake Olympic Games to complement the 1968 Summer Olympics in Mexico City. Lifeboat races were arranged and soccer games were played on the largest ship, the MS Port in Recargol. While church services were held on the West German motor ship Nordwind, and movies were shown on them. Bulgarian freighter Vasilevsky. The Swedish Kalara had a pool. In time, it was possible to reduce the number of crew members on board the ships. And in 1969, the ships were gathered into several groups to further reduce the number of crew necessary for their upkeep. Those crew that were left to maintain the vessels were rotated every 3 months. In 1972, the last crew members of the German ships were finally sent home, with the maintenance of the ships left to a Norwegian company. A postal system evolved, the handcrafted postage stamps of which became collector's items around the world. The Egyptian Postal Authority recognized the stamps, allowing their use worldwide. In early 1975, the Suez Canal was once again open for international transport, and on the 24th of May 1975, the German ships Münsterland and Nordwind finally reached Hamburg port, cheered by more than 0 spectators. They were reportedly the only ships to have returned to their home port under their own power. For the Münsterland, this was the end of a voyage to Australia which had lasted 8 years, 3 months, and 5 days. Alright, guys, that's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed learning about the Yellow Fleet. What surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you're new here, don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe. See you next time.